At the end of this topic, you will be able to describe the components of the circulatory system, state the functions of the circulatory system of the human body, explore the structure of the human heart, label a heart diagram with correct terminology, demonstrate the functions of the heart, relate the structure of the heart to the function of the two types of blood vessels, explain the functions and properties of blood, describe the different components of blood. The word circulatory comes from the root word circulation, which means to distribute. The main purpose of the circulatory system is to distribute its components evenly throughout the body. The basic functions of the circulatory system are to deliver oxygen and nutrients to the cells, to remove waste products after metabolic activities, and to regulate temperature of the body. The circulatory system has three main components: the heart, blood vessels, and the blood. Plasma makes up 55% of the volume of the blood. Plasma is composed of water, proteins, oxygen, carbon dioxide, and other substances like sodium, potassium, and calcium.
Heart is a conical muscular organ involved in pumping of blood. It is present in the thoracic cavity between lungs and mediastinum. It is protected by a double membranous structure called pericardium. The space between two membranes of pericardium is filled with pericardial fluid, which protects the heart from external jerk. Click the animation button and visualize the external structure of human heart. Human heart is internally divided into 4 chambers, 2 upper, thin-walled chambers called auricles or atria, which are involved in receiving blood, and 2 lower thick-walled chambers called ventricles, which pump blood to various parts of the body. Unidirectional flow of blood is controlled inside the heart by the presence of flap-like structures called valves. Now, let us see the types of valves present at different regions of the heart. Tricuspid valve is present between right atrium and right ventricle. Bicuspid or mitral valve is present between left atrium and left ventricle. Semilunar valves are present at the base of aorta and pulmonary trunk. Look at the table showing the location and the role of different valves in the flow of blood. Tricuspid valve present at right auriculoventricular aperture is made up of 3 flaps. It directs the flow of blood from right auricle to right ventricle. Bicuspid valve, otherwise said to be mitral valve, has 2 flaps. It is located at left auriculoventricular aperture and directs the flow of blood from left auricle to left ventricle. Pulmonary valves or semilunar valves is moon-shaped and 3 in number. It is present at the origin of pulmonary aorta in the right ventricle. It allows blood to flow from right ventricle into pulmonary aorta. Aortic valve or semilunar valve is 3 in number. It is located at the origin of aorta in the left ventricle. It allows blood to flow from left ventricle into the aorta. Thus, the flow of blood in one direction, that is unidirectional flow, is controlled inside the heart by the presence of valves. Now, you can have a look at the distinguishing features of right auricle and left auricle. Right auricle is larger in size than the left auricle. Right auricle receives blood through superior and inferior vena cava. Left auricle receives blood through pulmonary vein. Right auricle receives deoxygenated blood from all parts of the body except lungs. Left auricle receives oxygenated blood only from the lungs. Right auricle pumps blood into right ventricle. Left auricle pumps blood into left ventricle. Differences between right ventricle and left ventricle. The right ventricle is smaller in size than the left ventricle. The pulmonary aorta takes its origin from the right ventricle. The systemic aorta takes its origin from the left ventricle. The right ventricle receives deoxygenated blood from the right auricle and pumps the blood to lungs through pulmonary artery. The left ventricle receives oxygenated blood from the left auricle and pumps the blood to all parts of the body except lungs through the aorta. The tricuspid valve guards the right auricular ventricular aperture. The bicuspid valve guards the left auricular ventricular aperture. Blood vessels which carry the blood away from the heart are called arteries. It normally carries oxygenated blood. The systemic aorta and pulmonary aorta are the two main arteries arising directly from the heart. The systemic aorta arises from the left ventricle, carries oxygenated blood to all the body organs except lungs. The pulmonary aorta arises from the right ventricle. It branches outside the heart into right and left pulmonary arteries which carry blood to right and left lungs respectively. It is the only artery which carries deoxygenated blood to the lungs for purification. There is a pair of coronary arteries that supply oxygenated blood to the heart muscle. The blocking of coronary artery results in a heart attack. Blood vessels which bring the blood towards the heart are called veins. It normally carries deoxygenated blood. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, and pulmonary vein are the three large veins that bring the blood to heart from all the parts of the body. The superior vena cava collects deoxygenated blood from the upper parts of the body, such as head and neck. The inferior vena cava or postcaval vein brings deoxygenated blood from the lower parts of the body, such as abdomen, hands, and legs. Both these veins open into the right auricle. The pulmonary vein brings oxygenated blood from the lungs and opens into the left auricle. It is the only vein that carries oxygenated blood. A pair of coronary veins brings deoxygenated blood from the walls of the heart and opens into the right auricle. The rhythmic contraction and relaxation of cardiac muscle produce a heartbeat. In a normal person, heart beats 70 to 80 times per minute. Contraction phase of the heart is known as systole, and the relaxation phase of the heart is known as diastole. Functioning of heart includes three phases as follows. Auricular systole is the phase during which both the auricles contract at the same time and pump blood into the ventricles. Ventricular systole is the phase at which both the ventricles contract at the same time and pump blood into blood vessels. During ventricular diastole, both the auricles and ventricles relax. The study of blood is called hematology. Blood is a fluid connective tissue having several different types of cells present in the intercellular fluid called plasma. These cells are called blood cells or blood corpuscles. An average adult has about 5 liters of blood. In fact, blood is called fluid tissue of the body. Visualize a schematic representation of composition of blood. Components of blood plasma. Plasma is straw-colored and clear. It is slightly alkaline in nature. It consists about 60% of the total volume of the blood. About 85 to 90% of the plasma is water. Plasma consists of organic and inorganic components. Inorganic components, the total salt content in the blood plasma is about 0.85 to 0.9%. The chlorides and bicarbonates of sodium are the major inorganic salts present in the plasma. Apart from this, minute amounts of iron, phosphorus, and iodine are also present. These salts maintain osmosis, acid-base balance, and so on. Organic components. About 6 to 8% plasma is represented by organic components. The major organic components are sugars, especially glucose, amino acids, fatty acids, urea, lipids, and proteins. Blood contains heparin, which helps in the clotting of blood. Plasma contains a small amount of gases such as oxygen and carbon dioxide. These gases are present in a dissolved state. Proteins present in blood plasma. Albumin is the major protein. It helps in the transport of some substances and maintenance of osmotic pressure of the blood. Globulins participate in the transport of substances, defense reaction of the body, and in maintenance of osmotic pressure. Fibrinogen and prothrombin are blood proteins that help in the clotting of blood when the blood vessel is injured. Red blood cells are otherwise said to be erythrocytes. RBCs are circular and biconcave in shape. Immature red blood cell possesses all the organelles, including nucleus, but mature RBCs have only plasma membrane and cytoplasm. The production of RBC is called erythropoiesis. In adults, RBCs are produced in the bone marrow, while in embryonic stages they are formed in the liver and spleen. The number of RBCs is more in children than in adults. Most of the old red blood cells are destroyed in the spleen, so it is said to be graveyard of red blood cells. Every day, about 10 into 10 to the power 12 red blood cells are destroyed, and the same number of new red blood cells are added to the blood. The red color of the blood is due to the presence of pigment called hemoglobin. Hemoglobin is made of a protein called globin, ion called heme, and an organic molecule called porphyrin. It plays a major role in the transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide. White blood cells are otherwise said to be leukocytes. White blood cells are formed in the lymph nodes, spleen, and thymus. Old white blood cells are destroyed in the blood, liver, and lymph. White blood cells move like amoeba and feed on the foreign materials that enter the body. Therefore, white blood cells are also called as phagocytes. The two major types of white blood cells are granulocytes and agranulocytes. Blood platelets are otherwise said to be thrombocytes. These cells are oval or round or biconvex in shape. These cells have cytoplasm but no nucleus. They play a major role in the clotting of blood. Click the animation button to view the role of blood platelets in the blood clotting.
Blood distributes the digested food. Blood carries the metabolic waste to the excretory organs. Blood carries hormones, which are the secretions of endocrine glands. Blood distributes the heat evenly throughout the body. Blood keeps all the tissues moist.
In this topic you have learnt, circulatory system in humans is composed of heart, blood vessels and blood. Heart is protected by a double membranous structure called pericardium. Bicuspid valve is otherwise said to be mitral valve, which is located at the left auriculoventricular aperture of the heart. There is a pair of coronary arteries supplying oxygenated blood to the heart muscle. Contraction phase of the heart is called systole and relaxation phase is called diastole. For a normal person, heart beats 70 to 80 times per minute.
At the end of the topic, you will be able to describe the mechanism of respiration in humans, define the role of alveoli in exchange of gases, discuss the structure and functions of lungs.
The system which brings about inspiration, expiration and exchange of gases in lungs is known as respiratory system. The human respiratory system consists of a pair of nostrils, nasal cavity, nasopharynx or internal nares, larynx, trachea, bronchi, bronchioles and alveoli or air sacs forming the lungs. Click the animation button to view the 3D animation of human respiratory system. Mechanism of respiration in man involves two stages. They are inspiration and expiration. Click on the images to view the description. Lungs are made of several thousands of small air chambers called alveoli. Alveolus is the structural and functional unit of the lung. Exchange of gases takes place in the alveolus. When the air reaches the alveoli, oxygen diffuses through the membrane into small blood vessels called capillaries, and carbon dioxide diffuses from the blood in the capillaries into the alveoli.
The pair of lungs is the actual organs of respiration. It is conical in shape and placed inside the thoracic chamber. The base of the lungs rests on the diaphragm. The right lung has 3 lobes and left lung has 2 lobes. Each lung is surrounded by a double-walled membrane called pleura. The region inside the pleural membrane is called the pleural cavity. The cavity is filled with pleural fluid. The primary bronchi, on entering into each lung, are divided further into secondary bronchi. The secondary bronchi in turn give rise to tertiary bronchi. They divide still further and finally give rise to bronchioles. The bronchioles divide several times to become smaller terminal bronchioles. The terminal bronchioles end in small air-filled chambers called alveoli. This is the place where exchange of gases take place. Exchange of gases is only by simple diffusion. Human lungs have about 300 million alveoli. Functions of lungs. The lungs bring in oxygen-rich air and remove carbon dioxide from the body. It also excretes water vapor.
In this topic you have learnt, mechanism of respiration in man involves inspiration and expiration. During inspiration, volume of thoracic cavity will increase and the air pressure inside the lung will decrease. Exchange of gases in lungs takes place in the alveolus.
The lungs bring in oxygen-rich air and removes carbon dioxide from the body. It also excretes water vapor.